Hey guys, here is a quick review of the Empi disc brake setup for a ball joint Beetle. This particular set is going on this 67 Beetle that we have right here. And just a couple comments. Everything seems very high quality, very pleased with what I see here. I've used a bunch of these kits before, so I'm not really new to them per se. But I thought I'd go ahead and do a review because there's a couple things that I want to point out here. The first of which is be ready to do some painting if you want them to stay looking good. So at least in this particular kit, which again is for a ball joint car, and these are dual drilled rotors that have Porsche 5x130 pattern, and then I believe the other pattern is a Chevy or something like that that I'm not going to use. But if you want the Porsche ones, this is what you're going to get with the dual pattern. And so these don't come painted, they come raw, so you're going to have to clean them up and paint them, assuming that you don't want them to rust, which they will. So painted them outside and inside, and of course clean them first because they typically have some kind of oil on them or something to preserve them when they're sitting on the shelf. So clean them up real good, mask them off, paint them, no big deal. I actually bought this kit from Jason at Air Cooled Vintage Works, and if you buy the kit from him, he includes, or I don't know if it's included, but I get it with him always anyway, is this massive dual circuit master cylinder, which I think is like 25 millimeters or something. It's pretty enormous. And so this is a nice piece too, and this also comes unpainted. So if you get this, and typically master cylinders do come unpainted, so regardless of whether you get one that Empi sells or one that Air Cooled Vintage Works sells, you're probably gonna have to paint that too. The other thing is these come sort of unassembled in that you have to install the races for the bearing, which is the metal sort of sleeve that these tapered bearings fit in. These things, the races can be a real bitch to install. Typically what I do is I'll freeze the races for a while, literally just put them in the freezer. And that helps because, of course, when you freeze metal, it tends to shrink and it makes pounding them in a bit easier. We use one of these sets. You can get this at Harbor Freight or whatever. And pretty much you put the race on one of these and then you pound it in. And they can be pretty challenging to put in. I'm not going to lie. Even though these ones I froze, they really fought me. They were pretty hard to get in. I've done a bunch of these Empi sets, and usually they go in much easier, but again, you know, tolerances and so on. These were really hard to get in. So if you don't want to put in the races yourself, you can probably take the rotors and the bearing races to like a local brake shop or mechanic, and they can press them or pound them in for you, or go to Harbor Freight and get the tools and a big heavy sledgehammer and knock them in yourself. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to do these yourself. Other than that, it's pretty much just regular hand tools. The calipers are really nice looking, and they do seem to be dual piston, so one piston on each side, as you can see here. And I usually just leave them gold. I mean, they don't really show. You could paint these some other color if you want, but yeah, typically I'll just leave them gold. They don't look too bad. Another thing is on this particular car, since it's a 67, so this would be true for a 66 or a 67. The tie rod ends that come on these cars are smaller than the tie rods that the spindles are for in this set. So this is, again, a 2.5-inch drop spindle. So if you are doing this conversion on a 66 or 67 Beetle, be prepared to replace your outer tie rods on both sides to the later 68 and up Beetle ones, which are, I believe it's 2 millimeters bigger on the shank here, because these don't fit. So it's just something to look forward to, or look out for. The other thing is with this particular kit is they don't include the brake hose. And so unless you know that your brake hoses are really new, like you put them on within the last, I don't know, maybe year or so, I would highly recommend to go ahead and put on new ones. You know, you're already going to have to bleed the brakes anyway if you're replacing the master cylinder. So just replace all this stuff. Hoses are pretty cheap, and it's not something you want to fail. The other thing is with this set that it didn't come with is it did not come with the axle nuts or the thrust washers. I feel like maybe these kits used to come with these, but in any case, be prepared to scavenge those parts off your old drum brake setup, or buy new ones if you don't want to fool around with those. But that's another part that is not included in the kit. Again, I think it's a way for them to reduce the cost a bit by assuming you could maybe reuse that nut on each side and the thrust washer, maybe reuse your brake line, stuff like that. So just something to keep in mind if you go to do it, that you don't get partway into the project and realize that, you know, now you got to run out and get tie rod ends or some issue with your axle nuts, and now you got to stop what you're doing and go hunt down a set or whatever. So another thing I can mention that I like actually is they have started sending these out painted. So it used to be that the spindles were raw, and so you'd have to paint them yourself. So I was very happy to see when I got this set and opened it up that the spindles were already, I don't know if they're either painted or powder coated, but either way, it's one less thing that I have to do, which I appreciate. And so, yeah, very happy about that. It's definitely a good change on Empi's behalf, painting these. And in my experience, these kits also stop really well. Again, I've installed a lot of sets of these, but I don't think I've ever done a review of kind of the install process. Pretty straightforward, you know, just basically hand tools to put it on, and then when you're done, because you're altering the geometry of the car and the steering, and you're having to pull your tie rods apart. If you're doing a 68 or 67, or excuse me, 66 or 67. You're going to have to do an alignment. You would have to do an alignment anyway because of the drop spindles, and this being a ball joint car, you can set somewhat set the caster and the camber, although not totally independently. But yeah, so plan to do an alignment or have an alignment done too. Anyway, that is my review of this kit, and again, I think it's a good kit. Just be prepared that there's a few caveats with it, and that should do it. So thanks for watching. Bye.